Considering home security? Consider this. For 140 years, ADT has helped stop more crime than any other home security company. The yard sign isn't just a sign, it's a line in the sand. It's no wonder 5 times more people choose ADT to protect their homes. Visit ADT.com to learn more. For license information and terms and conditions, visit ADT.com.
All right, here we are. We're Mike and Mike, back and better than ever, presented by Progressive Insurance. Great guests still to come. Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Mike Krzyzewski in this hour. Number 1 in the country. They beat Michigan State in a good game last night. Joe Girardi to come today, and Paul Feinbaum will join us as well. This time tomorrow, Nick Saban live on Mike and Mike. So the big games.
I see a really heartfelt goodbye from Nick Saban.
From Nick?
Don't you?
You know,
you think he'll call us poison?
I think of all of the rat poison that exists, I think he dislikes us the least, or amongst the least. I do think that he will say nice things to us.
I'm just kidding. I know.
I enjoy Saban. I will be honest with you. It doesn't mean that we would be friends, but I find I'm in. Look, we've been doing this 18 years, and you're going to keep doing it, and I'm going to keep doing it, so we're going to stay in this business. And I believe that when you host a talk show, you're in the interesting business.
Yeah.
I like people who are interesting. It doesn't make any difference if I agree with them or don't, if I would want to be friends with them or not. Nick Saban is endlessly interesting to me. Everything he says is fascinating. When he stands up there and he's the rat poison stuff, I just find him interesting.
I do as well. And
glad he exists.
And by the way, what he's asked to do, he does at a level that not many have ever done. So that goes a long way.
If you wanted to argue that he's the greatest college football coach who ever lived, you could do it easily.
Absolutely, you can.
And if you wanted to argue that Krzyzewski is the greatest college basketball coach that ever lived, you could do that too, and he'll join us in a half hour. One other reminder, 30 for 30 podcasts are back. These are stories you have to hear to believe. You can subscribe right now in the Listen tab of the ESPN app or Apple Podcasts, presented by Mini. All right, a few things I wanted to mention that we haven't before we get back to some of the top stories of the day. They have named the Sexiest Man Alive.
Yes, they have.
Was one of these his songs? I have to admit I don't know.
Yes, it is.
Is this Blake Shelton?
Yes, it is.
All right, so Blake Shelton, who I know because he's the host of one of the singing shows, The Voice, has been named by People magazine the Sexiest Man Alive.
Do you know who he dates?
He dates Gwen Stefani,
there
right?
You go. Do you know who he was married to?
He was married to another country singer,
Miranda Lambert.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
I don't know a lot about the whole country.
Right. I know you don't.
Once you get past Kenny Chesney and Darius Rucker, you kind of lose me.
Kind of lose you? Okay.
But I appreciate his stardom. And do you find him sexy?
I don't really, I'm not asked to vote in that.
No.
He's way taller than, he's
last year
tall.
The Rock was the sexiest man alive. To me, he's much sexier.
It's for different people, it's different kind of sexy.
Get that. So it's just for me. You're asking me which one of them I find sexier.
Well,
I find The Rock much sexier.
Is that, got the facial hair, and he's sneaky tall. He's like 6'5". Tall dude. I enjoy him as an entertainer a lot. So yeah, he's got a really fun personality too. I mean, he really does. He's not afraid to have a drink, that's for sure, and have a good time. And so I like that. You mentioned The Rock was last year. It was David Beckham the year before that. Chris Hemsworth.
Stop there. Chris Hemsworth. I
saw the movie Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah. He cut off all his hair for that.
During it. I mean, it was long in it, and then it got cut during the movie. I don't want to give too much away. It was really good. It was way more of a comedy than I thought it was going to be, but I really liked it because I like the characters. I like him in it a lot. Let me tell you something. And holy smokes, there was the gratuitous scene of him without a shirt on, and if I had a body like that, I would never wear a shirt.
When I hosted the Kelly Ripa show with her, but when they were in between hosts, before they went from Regis Philbin to Michael Strahan, they had a bunch of people in, and I was one of them for a couple of days, and he was one of the guests when I was there. And let me tell you, that guy is so good looking, you could fall on the ground. It doesn't make any difference. It's ridiculous. And then he starts talking. And I don't know how everyone realizes this because he plays a lot of different characters. He's Australian. So he starts talking with this accent, and it's ridiculous. I'm looking at the crowd. Everyone in the audience at the Kelly Ripa show is female.
Yeah.
The women are dying in the audience. I've never felt worse about myself in my entire life. And I've sat next to professional athletes my entire adult life. I've never felt worse about myself than I felt sitting next to Chris Hemsworth.
Dude's unreal. And again, he's got a really good personality. You're asking about, from women's side, like the women in my life, like my wife, Chris and Sydney, they like larger athletic type people.
He's
right?
that. Chris
Oh,
Hemsworth
he's
is
that. So go back up to that. Go back up. So Blake Shelton they like because they like country, and he is 6'5". The Rock, seriously. I mean, the dude,
he's big.
Yeah, he is big. David Beckham would do nothing for them. Nothing for them at all. Chris Hemsworth, are you kidding me? Adam Levine was before that.
My daughter loves him.
It would do nothing for Sydney or my wife.
Isn't he on
nothing.
the same show, by the way, as
Yeah,
Blake Shelton?
on The Voice, yes. Before that, it was Channing Tatum.
I think my daughter would like Adam Levine, does like Adam Levine, and she loves Maroon 5 way better than she would like Blake Shelton.
Yeah. Before that, it was Channing Tatum, Bradley Cooper, Ryan Reynolds, Johnny Depp, Never You or Me.
How do we keep getting left out of this?
I don't know.
Everyone's paying all these tributes to us on our last week here. Hey, People Magazine, come on. Yeah. Could we have been sexiest talk show hosts? I mean, could we have not gotten that? Give me a little love here.
Probably not.
Were we even nominated? Do you think anyone wrote us in?
No, I don't think so at all.
Just submitted your butt photo?
Our wives wouldn't even write us in. 4 men have been given the distinction of winning twice. George Clooney, Brad Pitt, Johnny Depp, and Richard Gere.
Seems reasonable.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah,
so those are the choices.
Like I'm cool with, that's.
From what I know of him, he seems like a likable fellow.
He's a likable guy, big guy, country singing guy, likes to, again, enjoy himself. So, yeah, I'm cool.
All right, fair enough. Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance, comparing rates to help you save. Now, that's Progressive. Call or click today. Find out how much Progressive could save you. I also found one other story that I really like, and I'm dying to get your take on it. Because when Jim Harbaugh was talking about the the locker rooms and things like that at Purdue,
right.
which turned into a really terrible story that we covered for you here about how they did not have adequate medical care available to injured players. Inexcusable. But what we initially interpreted that to be was this new thing that's going on out there in sports where the environment in which players get ready to play psychologically is being taken into account, which I think is fascinating. So, for example, a lot of visiting locker rooms are painted lavender, pink, these soft colors,
calming colors,
which obviously there is some data that suggests that this will keep you from being at your physical best or whatever it is you want to be to play a football game. Mm-hmm. Bronco Mendenhall is the head football coach at the University of Virginia, and his team was struggling to win home games. They were not winning games at home. So he decided he was going to do something a little different. And he decided this. At his home games, before the games were played, he was bringing in toasters, and he was making toast so that the smell of toast would waft through his entire locker room, and thus, in his description of it, make the players truly feel like they were at home. When you wake up in the morning and you're home, the first thing you smell, that smell of toasting, and that gives you that feeling that you're home. And guess what? They're 4-2 at home this year. They've been by far better at home this year than they have been in any previous year. So Bronco Mendenhall attributes at least part of his team's home success to the toasters that he has working in the home locker room.
Listen, the bottom line is the result. If it's working, how much is it they're smelling burnt or they're smelling toast in the locker room? I have no idea. But this is what coaches do. Remember P.J. Fleck, now at Minnesota, he would, row the boat. Everybody rowing, that was his saying. People do. The U has the chain now. I mean, if players buy into it, then more power to them. I mean, then fine. Sometimes you do some things that turns out being white noise, or it doesn't work, or it backfires, or
this is toast, Mike. We're talking about toast.
Right. We're talking about the smell. We're not talking about toast. We're talking about the feel that.
What are we talking about here? Toast?
But
we're talking about
here's
toast.
Where I would have differed. What smell you want to truly feel like you're at home?
I know where you're going.
And you wake up in the morning. You wake up because of a wafting smell in the house. What is it?
Bacon.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Or coffee. I would go bacon or coffee.
I could live with either
or
toast. I would completely agree. He could be brewing a pot of coffee. In the locker room, you got that coffee smell. I'm with you. But bacon, to me, my mouth's watering right now.
Just thinking about it.
Are you kidding me?
I have a little coming for you.
I appreciate that very much.
We'll have it in the next break.
Yeah, I mean, but
anyway,
listen,
I just find that I am fascinated by the psychological side of this stuff.
It's the buy-in. The you're as strong as the weakest link. You run out with the chain. It's if the players buy in. That's what you're looking for. It's not just some coach thinking, what can I do that's a cool thing? It's like, what will my players buy into? What can they rally around? What can help them work? It's not the reason they're 4-2 at home, but if it gives you a cohesive feeling of at home, then that's great. It's a cool thing to do. It's certainly better when it turns out like it works.
And they have toasted 4 of their 6 opponents thus far this season.
Just waiting for that
at home. And they're playing Miami this week.
Yes,
right?
they are.
They're playing the U. So we'll see how that goes. All right, let's do some Straight Talk here. Brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. 1, 2, 3, and 4 named yesterday. Let's just cover that quickly again. Alabama is number 1. Clemson is number 2. Miami is number 3. Oklahoma is number 4. It is the same 4 teams I would have had in there. It isn't the order I would have had them in, but that at this point feels
doesn't matter, right?
Irrelevant, not only because it doesn't matter now, but because if you see the paths, I think the right 4 teams get in, the same 4 teams that I would have get in based upon the circumstances. So I don't have any quibble worth mentioning with what they did last night, do you?
No, I don't. And the bottom line is they all can't win out because Clemson and Clemson and Miami are playing in the ACC championship. So if you're sitting there as Wisconsin and you're a Wisconsin fan going, my God, we're undefeated. Could we get left out? I think there is a slight possibility you could. But if you go 13-0 by beating Michigan this week, and while they're ranked, and then you would be playing Ohio State in the the Big Ten championship game, I do think you're going to be in. Auburn sits in Auburn is sitting there at number 6. I thought they would be, and they control their own destiny. You beat Bama, you win the SEC, you're in. You're 2
Georgia
losses.
too.
Oh, whoever wins the SEC is in. So yes,
So those 3 teams, 1 spot.
winning the rest of the way up to that game.
Fair
you know
enough.
what I mean?
In the event that Alabama loses, okay, let me give you both scenarios. Alabama loses a close game to Auburn. Are they out?
Then they're not even in the SEC championship game. I think you have to start waiting to see what other teams do. I think they're going to need some help. I don't think they're in and somebody else bumps in. I think they're going to have to wait and see what else might happen.
Alabama loses a close game to Georgia in the SEC title game. Are they out?
No, I don't know. I don't think they're out. Again, what happens what if Ohio State beats Wisconsin in the Big Ten championship game? Now a 1-loss Alabama team and a 1-loss Wisconsin team. Who do you think they're taking?
How about the 2-loss Ohio State Big Ten champ?
If they were to win, well, then
I mean, that's the scenario you just gave me.
Right. Then how much do they win by? You have to start looking at results. I know the committee, they're very, we don't look at results, but you have to. You're a human being. You're going to look at how a team got smoked or smoked a team, especially of a high caliber. I don't mean, a Power 5 beating a non-Power 5. I mean when ranked or playing ranked and they get, Miami, impressive what they did to Notre Dame, ranked. Auburn, impressive what they did to Georgia, ranked. You have to take that into consideration.
Yeah, and all these Big 12 things, there's a million permutations that still can happen in the Big 12. Oklahoma will have tough games ahead of them as well. So there are still some possibilities that exist out there. That one to me is the most interesting. Alabama more than the U, to me, maybe rightly or wrongly, I think, could lose and still get in.
I think they could.
I don't feel like Miami could, and the fact that they only put them 3rd also suggests that. Like, they're still only 3rd. They just beat Notre Dame like 100-0, and they're still only 3rd, and they're unbeaten.
That could be you always look for little messages from the committee, and that could be one of them.
And they have them behind a team with a loss.
Yeah, no, listen, I'm with you. Again, this past weekend was a huge play out, no doubt about it. With 7 ranked ranks going against one another. You don't have that this weekend, especially with like an Alabama and Auburn. They all kind of take a break on their schedule this week before they meet up.
Wisconsin-Michigan is a big game.
Wisconsin and Michigan
is
a monster game. Miami, just what Herbie said, you look at them, you be careful not to, you had 2 big games against Virginia Tech and Notre Dame, but you looked shaky against other teams. You got to be careful of that letdown. So we keep an eye on that.
Those early starts, too. Sometimes I feel like the better teams, you tell me, what's the difference? Like, teams are so used to playing those noon games. I'm surprised that sometimes we see them a little flat.
Well, it depends if you're used to it or not.
Back-to-back night games. Well, I mean, they've obviously played early games this year, but they've now played back-to-back night games. Game day was just there.
It can be longer, no doubt. Listen, the year my boys in 2012 went to the title game and they were undefeated, they had a lot of night games. And when you play at Notre Dame, normally you're playing at 2:30 in the afternoon. They've had a noon game, I think, that year as well. But because they were winning, a lot of those games went to night games, and that can, and they got through them, and they went undefeated. But it can change up your schedule, no doubt about it.
And so, which is harder? The night game
to me, well, I can only speak for myself. Everybody is different there. I love the noon game. Let me get up. Let me go play. Let me get up and just do it. I don't want to lay around. I hate laying around. The more I lay around, you like get caught in that area of, okay, what do you do? Now, the coach has got to take care of you all day. You get up and you do a walkthrough. If you're on the road, sometimes you're doing it in the ballroom of the hotel you're in, or sometimes out in the parking lot. And then what do you do with all that time? Players will sit around and watch the games because you have all day to watch the games, the early games and even the part of the mid games before you have to go. But then you lay around, you feel tired from laying around. But you don't want to get up and do too much because you don't want to tire yourself getting up. You want to stay off your legs. That's the whole key, is you have it just ingrained in your mind, stay off your legs, stay off your legs, stay off your legs. So you lay down, you fall asleep and you nap, you wake up. By the time you're going to the game, sometimes you feel a little groggy. So, that's just me personally. I loved playing when I was in the NFL. I loved 1 o'clock games. If I was at Notre Dame, the noon game or that 2 o'clock game, let me play it. Let me be done with it. Let me get up while I have that energy and play.
The most important thing, I think, is no matter what happened, make sure you had the smell of toast around you.
For me, it would be bacon.
Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks. And then to me, maybe the most interesting thing going on in sports right this minute is the return of the 3 UCLA basketball players, most famously LiAngelo Ball, but 3 freshmen from China, and the fact that the president had to get involved and spoke to the Chinese president about this. And so this, I guess it does sort of rise to the level of international incident. And for whatever this is worth, people are letting us know, as we were dismissing how this would be handled in the United States, people are suggesting that the value of the sunglasses that they allegedly stole was such that this would actually initially be dealt with as a felony in the U.S. It's over a certain dollar value.
Right.
So it isn't nothing. It is what it is. I mean, everyone can make up their own mind how significant they think the act of stealing a pair of designer sunglasses from a fancy store would be in the U.S. I mean, it's a criminal act, obviously, and it's an extraordinarily stupid act.
Yes, it is.
To me, it changes the dynamic completely when you do it in another country while representing your school and everything else over there.
So if they did it on Rodeo Drive, you wouldn't punish them as much?
I think that would be different. I don't know
really?
Exactly how.
They walked into a store and stole, whether it was in China or here, and stole the exact same pair of sunglasses. They did it on Rodeo Drive. They did it in China. You would punish them more because they did it in China than if they did it in L.A.
I would consider that, yes, because I think...
Is it not still a stupid act?
It's a stupid act, but I think that you do take into account the consequences of your act as well.
Are they not in L.A. still representing UCLA?
Yeah, but
and
they're
names?
not overseas representing their university and indirectly, I guess, the United States while they're there. I think the fact that the consequences of it, the fact that diplomatic channels had to be utilized in order to clear this up,
that,
it does go into it.
That didn't have to happen. That happened on its own. Nobody asked that to happen, or at least I don't think.
Well,
that happened
we don't
on
know
its own.
Who asked what.
And the punishment would be greater out there. I get it, but that shouldn't come into play with now it's UCLA. Now it's UCLA giving out the punishment. I'm trying to figure out why you would think you would say if this happened in L.A., well, maybe only 5 games, but if it happened overseas, you're out the year. Why would it be different? You have 3 freshmen who stole something in a store.
Right.
One in the United States, the other in China. And I
don't know that I can put my finger on the reason, but they don't feel like the same thing to me.
They certainly wouldn't be for the players. If they dealt with the law over there and dealt with the law here, it would be different over there. But should that make the punishment different?
I do think so. I know I've never been in the position to be making these kinds of decisions.
Well, you're a parent.
Yeah. So, well, if I were, but it's one thing how you deal with your own kids. It's another thing how you're now going to deal with a very public situation with somebody they aren't your kids. And, what we're dealing here in is their playing time. So I'll make it very clear. I would not take away their scholarships. I would not throw them out of the school. But I would be open to the notion that people are suggesting they should be suspended for an entire season.
And you wouldn't have done that had they done it in America.
I would be open to hearing what people's suggestions of the difference would be.
If your kid did something illegal in the United States but then in a foreign country and then you got him home, would you punish him more because it was a foreign country?
I think I would view them differently.
I would view that. I would have been a hell of a lot more scared knowing what possibly could have happened over there and trying to get that message across to them. But would you have punished them? And again, just like Herm said, we do a great job of punishing someone else's kids, spending someone else's money, and all this and all that. That's why I'm not saying what I would do to your kid. I'm asking that as a legitimate question to you out there. If you were a coach And this happened in L.A., and we know it happened in China. The exact same store, because we know they're in L.A.
Sure. The
exact same glasses, we know they're there. And the exact same thing happened. They got caught. They had to be bailed out. The whole deal. Would you as a coach, punish the players differently?
Yes, my answer is I would. And if you ask me why, I don't know that I can put into words my reasons, but they feel like different things to me.
So the reporters are then asking you, Mr. Greenberg, or Coach, you'd punish them differently. Why?
Well, I would have to give a lot of thought to putting into words an answer, which I have not done now. But just off, and maybe if I sat down with a notepad and I wrote out the pros and cons, what I would arrive at is, no, they are actually this worthy of the same punishment. Maybe I would change my mind if I did more deep thinking into it. But my initial reaction is, this does feel different and feels as though the consequences should be different based upon the fact that they were that this happened internationally and what had to happen in order for the result of it to be what it was. I mean, I don't know what would have happened. I don't know who knows exactly what would have happened had the State Department, the White House, the president not gotten involved.
Right.
They might still be there.
They might be.
For all we know.
They might be.
And it does change it for me. I can't necessarily put into words why. That's not a good answer, but it's the best answer I can come up with right now. It does change it for me. It doesn't for you?
I don't know if it would change it for me. I mean, the act is the act. You know, where you do it, it would be dumb in L.A. and dumb in China. Worse for the players, though. I mean, no doubt about it, because of what, if it all ran to fruition of what they would have to go through. But now if I'm in the position of punishment, am I treating it differently because it happened overseas? The exact same thing. I don't know if I would. Hey, everyone, Mike Golick here. Support for the Mike and Mike podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. Rocket Mortgage is simple, allowing you to fully understand all the details and be confident you're getting the right mortgage for you. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS, consumeraccess.org number 3030.
Home isn't just a place, it's a feeling. Whether you're at home, your business, or online, ADT helps keep you safe. With security systems, home automation, alarms, and surveillance, so you can feel at home, wherever you are. Go to ADT.com to get that feeling. ADT. Home. Safe home.
Well, listen, it has been a really fun week for us here as we have had a chance to reminisce about our 18 years together. And one of the people who has been a constant in that, and candidly well before we were doing this show, was winning national championships and creating the signature program in college basketball at Duke, and has always been really good with his time with us and shared all kinds of insight and thoughts. And that is the legendary Hall of Fame coach at Duke, Mike Krzyzewski, who joins us here on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Good morning, Coach K.
Yeah, good morning, you guys. And, I'm sad that you guys are not going to be doing this anymore. I know, everything comes to an end, but really in sport, there's so many opinions, and every morning people could tune into you guys and get a good one. Not a good one, just a great one, and an honest one, and an honest discussion. And not just yelling back and forth, but really an in-depth discussion, and just a trademark, Mike and Mike. And thank you for 18 years of just spectacular, honest, right-on work, and not many times where you tune into anything do you just say, "Hey, I trust those guys. I want to hear what they have to say. I want to hear who they're going to bring on," and so again, thanks. In the military they say well done, and that's what I would say for you guys. Very, very well done.
We really do appreciate that. And you certainly made our brand a lot better by coming on the show as many times as you have no doubt about that.
So let's talk a little bit about your team now, and then I would love to go a little bigger picture with things. But obviously you got the number one team in the country. You have a showdown game with Izzo's Michigan State team, and you beat them last night. And there was Grayson Allen, the leader now with 37 points. And I'd love you just to talk to a little bit about him. We see the growth in him. It is well documented, all the stuff that's happened with him there. And now he's got to be the leader of this young group of guys. So what sorts of conversations do you have with him about that, and what are you seeing in him as you sort of undertake a new season with him in that role?
More than just a conversation, it's just a relationship. And, when you have a kid for a long time, and he's been through the very top of something that can happen to a young man, whether it be winning a national championship and being a hero, to being an All-American, to being somebody who is kind of vilified and booed and at every possession when he's on the road and really closely scrutinized. I mean, nobody I've coached has gone through that whole thing. And so along the way, you build up a great relationship. And what you want to do is grow from it. And he's a great young man. He's not a kid. He's a young man, and he's really changed his game, to where I feel he's as good a shooter as there is in college basketball. And if you're always driving, you're getting knocked to the floor and all that. I said, the basis of your game should be shooting, and then complemented by driving, and then we need you to lead. Boy, he did all those things last night to the top level, and especially lead. It was the most vocal in warm-ups in a locker room when another teammate was making a mistake, or he was really there. It was beautiful to watch, and he deserves it. He's worked hard, and he's real healthy now.
11 of 20 from the field, 7 of 11 three-point land, 8 of 8 from the free throw. Just a spectacular night. And he is a young man, and he's playing with 4 kids. You got 4 freshmen out there with a senior.
Yeah.
So in the game of today, which you have to adapt to, how does the learning curve change when you have 4 freshmen out on the court?
Mike, one of the things with freshmen is, there's a mental or emotional maturity, but there's also a physical maturity. When they are not mature in all 3 of those areas, I mean, that doesn't mean they're not good kids, but they're not ready. That becomes very, very difficult. Especially the 4 freshmen who start, physically, they are really ahead of the game. They're strong. They're very athletic. They really know how to work hard already, and they're great kids. And so they've been able to adapt a little bit, much better than a normal freshman would. And then being with our upper class, not just Grayson, but the guys who come off the bench, Javin DeLaurier, Antonio Vrankovic, these guys, they've been really good setting an environment where they're not selfish, they're not envious of these new guys. Instead, they're helping them all the time. So we have a really good environment. We just have to keep growing. We're very young.
Mike and Coach K, it's interesting you say that because there is so much scrutiny right now on how young basketball players are being developed, obviously with all the stuff that happened with the FBI and everything, and all these questions about AAU and is it good, is it bad, and all of that. It sounds to me like what you're saying is the players you're getting coming in as freshmen now, I would ask it in the form of a question, are they more prepared to play college basketball than they were when you started at Duke 35 years ago or whatever it is? Are the players coming in today who are 17, 18 years old more prepared than they were in the 80s?
Well, 2 things. One, I think they're more physically ready. All these games, and they really as youngsters in high school and AAU, they develop their bodies more. The weight training, the conditioning, all these things. I think they're better prepared that way. The other thing is they're not coming into an environment where they did in the 80s when Sampson was playing 4 years, or Ewing, and in the 90s when guys were still staying a long time. There's talent, really good developed talent that's older, but it's not necessarily first-round talent in the NBA, where first-round talent in the NBA was prevalent in all classes, especially the upper class, before. Now the competitive set that they have to go against is more experienced, older, not necessarily more talented, and so they can adapt a little bit quicker. And then what we try to do is we allow a little bit more slippage, in their performance. That doesn't mean we tolerate bad things, but we understand that they're not going to know things as well as a team of my 210 team with Shire and Nolan Smith and Singler and Zubek and Lance Thomas, who were juniors and seniors. Those guys, they've been through the wars. Last night was the first big game for 7 of my freshmen, and that's huge. But they've adapted really well, and they're really good kids. They want to learn, and that's part of who you recruit too. We've been lucky to get not just good players, but really good young men.
So that being said, because of the youth of the team, when in your mind do you know who you are this year? How many games? And I know you can't put this game here, but how far into the season do you say, okay, this is what we are?
Well, you have some idea, but, if you already say who you are, then you may not become who you're supposed to be. In other words, if you allow yourself to say, hey, we're there right now, with these guys, I think you have to keep the house can never be completely built. You have to keep adding on to it. And I think to me, that's the excitement and the beauty of coaching a group like this now in my career as opposed to a veteran group. And these guys have to be given room to grow. And we may not, I know that as a player, Marvin Bagley or Wendell Carter, they're not going to be as good for me this year as they will be eventually. So why would I ever put a ceiling on what they can do? I'm just going to keep trying to get them better, and then I need to adapt my system along the way to allow that growth. And I like that. So, that's one of the things I still really love about coaching is that aspect of it, and it's newer now than it was 10 years ago. So, again, the coaching craft has changed a little bit, and you should change accordingly, and that's what I'm trying to do.
And as part of that coaching comes along, as we mentioned with Grayson Allen, his maturity and discipline along the way. And let me first say, I'm not asking you to discipline anybody else's players, but like in the situation at UCLA, everybody's trying to figure out what they're going to do. What I'm asking you is, what's your method to decide for your players? Do you seek out other counsel and talk to other people about what you should do, or what is the way you go about disciplining your players?
Well, I don't like rules. I like standards, because you can own a standard. You can only obey or disobey a rule. And I think what you have to do is look at every situation and say what's right, not just what's right for what was done, but what's right for the youngster who was involved at that time. And somebody might say, well, you did this differently for one guy than another, and they're right. But also, it gives you as a leader an opportunity to make sure that you're personalizing the solution to the situation that you're in, instead of just categorizing it in a certain area and saying we're always going to do this, when this happens. And I don't know if I'm making sense here, but
no, you are. You're sure.
It gives me great latitude in leadership, but it also gives me the ability to personalize, because I know the kid. I know that. Now we're not talking. Depends on if it's unbelievably serious. Then hey, there are laws for this and all that. But that's the way I've tried to lead my program, and even with the U.S. team, although we didn't have. You always have a few problems. We developed standards, not rules, and we met as a group, and guys, LeBron and these guys gave their input, and then we said, well, here are the 14 things that we're going to adhere to, and they became our standards, a way of living. And then whatever happened along the way with my U.S. team or Duke teams, then I try to be that leader and decide. I always seek counsel. I'm not, I think, especially from my athletic director, if my president is involved, and from my staff. And but again, the personalization to the solution of a problem, to me, is always what you should do. And I like that form of leadership, and also, it's not the end of whatever whatever the problem was, is not the end of the relationship you have with that youngster. Mm-hmm. It is part of the journey with the youngster, and then how you handle it can, even in a bad situation, can produce something really positive as you go forward, because you don't want to end the relationship. It's just a bump. It's what happens. And again, that's what I try to do. I'm not saying it's right for everybody, but it's what I like to do, and it's proven to be good for us.
Coach, we can't thank you enough for everything over all these years, and I'm sure we'll be seeing you again soon, maybe at the Final Four when you play Northwestern this year. Thank you.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you, Coach.
That would be great. All right. And, hey, thank you once again for both of you. Job greatly done, and you've done great things for sport, all sport. And sad but happy that you were together this long, and really set a standard that other people can try to live up to.
Thank you,
We appreciate that,
You're the
Coach.
best. Thank you very much.
Take care of you guys.
Coach K with us, number one team in the country. Quick break, back in a moment. Much more. Mike and Mike.
Computer, execute 12.4p operation.
Optimizing algorithm. Running encryption packet alpha. Night. Oh, I don't feel so good.
What is it, computer?
Is it hot in here? It feels hot in here. I feel a little clammy. I should lie down or something.
A computer with a virus? Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
Those oysters Rockefeller were a mistake.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Way late there with Coach K, but way worth it in every conceivable way. A lot of people, meanwhile, going back to the conversation you and I were having about the UCLA players and whether it's different in China.
Right.
And I kept saying to you, it just is, and I can't put my finger on why.
There's no doubt it's different and feels different, yes.
I'll give you two examples that people have tweeted me, so I can't take credit for these. They're not perfect analogies, but they make sense. Shane Langford tweets, the difference is my kid stealing $20 from my wife's purse or them stealing $20 from the purse of a family that invited us over for dinner. They are different. They're both stealing $20. They're both wrong, but it's somehow different. Another person tweeted at me, speeding is a crime. Mm-hmm. Speeding in a construction zone, the penalties are double.
Put more on it.
It's
right.
just different.
Right.
You know what I mean? Somehow, to me, doing this in China when you're representing the U.S. when you're there, all the things that had to go on as a consequence of them, it does just change the equation. And I believe it would change the way I would react to it as their coach.
Like I said, I know it's – listen, for those that are saying I don't see the difference, I know the difference. I'm asking you, would you punish differently? That's my only question. At the end of it all, they walked into a store and they stole something. You know, there's a difference of stealing, an apple out of a fruit stand and going into a bank with a gun and stealing, $100,000.
Right.
There's a difference there.
Correct.
This was just the place they sold. I'm saying if they sold the exact same thing, but in a different place. I get it's different. I get there can be more on in China. I get the only real added fact is you're now representing the country as well as UCLA in your name. Again, I don't know if they asked anybody to intervene and step in or if the president was over there, knew the story and did it on his own. I have no idea. I don't know. What I'm asking is, when you're getting down to punishing, would you say, I'm going to punish you differently? I'm going to punish you more because this happened overseas.
Yes, and I continue to say the answer is yes. And I, for all the reasons we just described and others, it just feels to me like a more, I'm not sure if serious is the right word.
The ramifications were more serious.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that.
Both ways it's serious. I'm not saying it feels worse to me.
It does. I get it. I agree with
react
you.
To it differently.
I agree with you. It feels worse because of the steps you have to go through and the ramifications of it.
I say again, and Nancy Armour wrote the column, and I read it, It will be very interesting to see what, if any, role LeVar Ball plays in this, because he's got another son who might be coming to UCLA, who's a better player than the one who was involved in this. How will that affect the way UCLA reacts to this? Maybe we'll find out later today. Stay there, Mike and Mike.